get.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Thursday night. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast. That means it's Crawlspace hour. What's up? I'm Tim here with Lance for the Gossip Pod. We're being joined by two very special guests tonight. What's up, everybody?
Hey, how's it going?
What
now
is...
we're terrified.
I interrupted you, Bill. Oh my God. It's 9:01 and I already interrupted Sir William Thomas. We have Sir William Thomas and Dame Kristin Dilley on tonight.
Hello.
Hello.
Have you both here. It's been a long time coming. Is this your guys' first time appearing officially on a Get Vocal show?
Yes, it is.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, welcome to the fold. You
This is a little terrifying, but I'm good.
No, you look like you've got it all together. You're cool, calm, and collected. You got your Bill right next to you. Who, I mean, how could you get nervous with Bill right there?
Sure.
I was saying to Tim earlier that when we interview you, Bill,
yes.
I always end up subconsciously talking like you. About 15 minutes into the interview, I'll start articulating my words and really thinking about every word before I say it.
Oh, I see. We can edit that out in the podcast.
But even as I'm saying it, I'm like, I wonder if I hope he doesn't think I'm making fun of him. I just can't stop doing it. Because the way you speak is so melodious.
Why, thank you, Lance.
Yes. Wow.
That could be the word of the day.
I think I took 3 words and just smushed them all together.
All right. We'll have to fact check that word.
Right. Please note that Michelle has apologized to Kristin Dilley in advance for whatever may transpire here, apparently.
Oh my gosh. You mean Shelley?
Yes. Shells?
The shells.
The shells.
So, Bill and Kristin, you are here joining us on Get Vocal tonight. It's a very special night. You do your own podcast, which is a goddamn masterpiece. It's on the Crawlspace Network. It's called Mind Over Murder. Why don't you tell us about this podcast, Mind Over Murder?
Kristin, tell him about Mind Over Murder.
Oh, you would put me on the spot, wouldn't you?
Let's see. By the way, for everybody, the camera is reversed from the way you'd expect it to be. It's like driving in the UK. Everything is on the wrong side of the car. So, Kristin, you were saying.
So Mind Over Murder is something that Bill and I have been wanting to do for a long time, and it really built out of our work on the Colonial Parkway Murders Facebook page. And so we felt that it was important to cover true crime cases that maybe might not get the amount of attention, that it deserves. And I'm trying to pay attention to the chat too, and it's kind of freaking me out seeing all of this.
Disregard.
No, it's all good. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's mostly greetings for Morph because he's famous, and don't be distracted by them. Besides, I can't help myself. I usually like to throw comments into the scroll on the side as well. No, I think,
and I'm just going to go ahead and minimize that.
So,
yeah,
can you minimize? Oh.
I did. It's freaking me out to see it otherwise.
I did that. Oh, now how do I bring it back? Jeez.
All right.
Oh, I'm learning as I go here.
We're workshopping this on these two.
We definitely are.
We did today. It was our first time.
Your relationship was born through the Facebook page for the Colonial Parkway Murders.
Well, Kristin.
Yeah, our relationship was born because I had an idea to write a book about the Colonial Parkway Murders. And I decided that I wanted to talk to the families of the victims. And Bill's is the name that came up most often in all the newspaper and internet reporting as sort of the spokesperson for the families. And so I got his number and cold called him in Los Angeles and said, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. Would you like to talk to me? And he had to vet me for a little bit to make sure I wasn't a whack job. I'm not.
Stalker, that.
But yeah, he figured out pretty quickly I was on the up and up, and we started talking, and that started our professional relationship.
There you go. And
were you nervous when you're dialing Bill Thomas's number? Were you shaky? Your hands were sweating?
Well, I wasn't prepared for the full Bill Thomas experience. No.
No one is.
And somebody mentioned in the chat a minute ago, and that's why I had to minimize it. I am a very shy person by nature. And this is so far out of my depth. I can't even begin to tell you. So yeah, it was weird for me to cold call Bill, but the case meant a lot to me. I had grown up with it, and I wanted to, shed some light on it, especially on the family members of the victims. So I made the call. I felt it was that important.
So there you have it.
And what did you learn on that phone call?
Well,
tell us everything.
I learned that Bill likes to talk a lot.
No kidding.
Well, have you heard his voice? If you had that voice, you'd talk a lot. I would talk in my sleep. I would talk to everybody that I like. I would be the friendliest person. People would. Bill, you really do drink olive oil, right? Apple cider vinegar, right?
Just finished some for dinner tonight.
We just realized that Bill has the hat trick. He's got the three main Crawlspace media shows that we do anyway. Missing More, Murray Crawlspace, and he just did a guest spot on Empty Frames that's coming out next week. So that's the hat trick. So sorry to interrupt. Continue, please, Kristin.
Let's see. You were asking me about what did I learn on that first phone call with Bill?
Every time I stop talking, I'm just going to keep saying, okay, sorry, continue, Kristin.
Just throw it to Kristin.
Go ahead, Kristin.
This is a real trial by fire, isn't it? Well, I learned that Bill is very passionate about his sister's case, and that he was very interested in seeing justice done for her and for all the other members of the Colonial Parkway victims and their families. And I really enjoyed getting to know him, even just during that first phone call, because I could see how passionate he was and how committed and how interested he was in, seeing justice done.
Well, there you have it.
Sounds pretty good. And Bill, there was a pretty solid level of trust there right away.
There was, well, a lot of people reach out to me about the Colonial Parkway murders, and not all of them are completely screwed down to the deck. But fortunately, Dilley was one of the people that was rational. And my usual deal is I like to know who I'm talking to before I talk to them, so I can do some research and make certain they really are who they say they are, and not a suspect in the Colonial Parkway murders or what have you. And no, I think Kristin and I really clicked, and we developed a really nice rapport. I don't know if we ended up doing an interview that day I think shortly thereafter.
No, it was another day.
Yeah.
It was another day. Wait, did you background check me, Bill? Did you background check me?
Well, yeah, probably. It was a long time ago now.
We're dropping exclusives
yeah,
here.
Exactly. We're watching The Break.
Wow.
yeah, the show's falling apart.
Wow.
There's no Mind Over Murder anymore.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't one single bit.
No,
honestly. If people...
Thank you for having a distinctive name. Yeah. It's always tough when somebody calls and says, "Hi, my name's John Smith, and I'd like to talk to you."
Are you saying that there's something suspicious about people named John Smith, Bill?
No, not at all. I was going to say Jane Smith, and yes, I like the idea of Tim doing the book club, and yes, I'll be happy to read the audiobooks.
There you go. So, how did you start background checking Kristin? Did you just dive right into like a Bing search, or did you hire a private investigator?
Oh yeah, tell all our secrets.
We know some PIs who are on this call.
We do. Yeah, we do.
No, I use the usual resources. Quick quick Google.
Notice he's not telling you what
No,
they
the
are.
usual resources for you or for like the regular person.
quick whitepages.com, and then check the social media, run a criminal background check, that kind of stuff, the usual stuff.
Yeah, you sent people out there to keep tabs on her. I mean, how far did this go? Did you look into us?
Well, thank you both for having very distinctive names. I'm still struggling with spelling or pronouncing Reinstierna.
It's actually Reindeer Star.
It's actually Reindeer Star. There we go. There's a exclusive Reindeer Star. That is what my name means.
I think it's important, by the way, when we're talking about Mind Over Murder, that it be noted that you guys are actually directly responsible, i.e., it's partially your fault, and Mike Morford and several other podcasters whom I admire, for talking me into doing a true crime podcast, because I had guested with a lot of you talking about the Colonial Parkway murders and other stuff. And then you guys kept saying, you should do your own podcast. You should do your own podcast. And I thought to myself, well, okay, there's another thing on my to-do list. But one of the things I thought about was, the last thing the true crime podcasting world needs is another white guy of a certain age, that would be me, talking into a microphone. And so I thought, what could I do to kind of balance this out so it wouldn't be, yet another true crime podcast? And so I thought about asking Kristin, because we're from different backgrounds. She lives in Virginia. I have never lived in Virginia. She's significantly younger than I am, much better looking, which is very important when you're doing audio. And her perspective, having grown up in Virginia, then, gone away to college and grad school, and then, come back to the Williamsburg area, was real different from mine. And I thought it would be good to have a man and a woman, different ages, different backgrounds, and we don't always feel like we have to agree on every little thing. And so, I told Kristin that a number of podcasters had said, hey, you got to do a podcast. You'd be great. And I said, I'll do a podcast. And she said, great, that's fantastic. Of course, she didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, if you'll do it with me. And she does. She's a writer and a researcher and a wonderful teacher. She doesn't necessarily always seek to be out front.
No.
But when I said, I'll do a podcast if you'll do a podcast, I kind of reeled her in.
Well, I just want to make it clear that all of those other white guys around the same age doing podcasts, all of those were just placeholders until you came in, and they quit. So there's no one else. They're all just waiting for Bill Thomas.
Oh, I don't know about that, but thank you. But I like the chemistry between the two of us, and we've sort of developed a little bit of a rhythm. And then, I guess I'm editing episode 24 as we speak. Of course, you guys are all snorting. We got hundreds of podcasts in our past.
We do brag every single time we speak about it.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. But we're really enjoying the process. We feel like we're listening and learning. I wouldn't want to go back and listen to, especially episode 1, which has like the most.
Oh
listens.
God! No.
Oh, you know what you should do?
So bad.
You know what you should do? You should get into a deal with Stitcher Premium to do creator commentary over your first episodes, your old episodes, so that you can experience that special kind of torture, and then you get to talk about it.
Oh my God.
You get to listen to it again.
How nervous we sound, especially the first episode. We just, we launched in January. So in December, pre-COVID, I went down to Virginia, and I guess I was down there for 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days.
And we recorded a bunch of episodes face to face in Kristin's kitchen, and which was actually really fun. And we got to try out the equipment and the whole 9 yards. But when I listened back to especially the first episode, we just sound so nervous. And then after that, it kind of settled down.
Yeah, I think that's the case with a lot of it. First of all, most people just don't feel comfortable hearing their own voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, you start to do it, and it's like, well, what was that?
She just likes her voice, which I like her voice.
Oh, you got a great voice.
No, I actively dislike my voice. I always have.
Bill balances that out because because he loves the sound of his voice.
Yeah, I could listen to myself talk all day.
Strange.
Who wouldn't?
No, seriously. I think Kristin has a really cool sort of Lauren Bacall thing going on, which is interesting.
Someone once told me that my voice sounded like someone was beating a cat to death in a trash
that's
can.
very unfair.
Man, come on.
That is, I don't.
Since then, I've had a big problem with my voice.
Well,
it's like they're beating Lauren Bacall to death in a trash can.
Yeah. And
Thank you. That's even better.
The whole time.
Of course, Lauren Bacall. Well,
if we can make it Katharine Hepburn, Alex.
I'm good
Backhand
with Katharine Hepburn. Sure. No, you've got a nice feminine quality, but there's a little bit of a rasp to it. I think you have a cool voice. I listen to it very carefully because I know people divide up the tasks, and Tim does the edit on Crawlspace, and I do the edit on Mind Over Murder. So I'm sitting there, taking out all the ums and ahs and all that stuff. These are the true confessions of podcasters. I just said which we can cut that out.
And you guys have ums and ahs?
Yeah.
Weird.
I do.
We're not there yet.
So
I do
Kristin,
too.
tell me, you're a teacher. Tell us a little bit about that. What grade and everything?
What happened to my?
I'm sorry, I muted you. I meant to mute myself.
She's already nervous enough, Tim. You just muted her again.
Sorry, I'm muting myself.
That's okay. I teach advanced placement language and composition. I teach American literature, and I just this year started teaching the evolution of cinema, which is really excellent and a ton of fun.
What? How do we know?
Yes.
This is another exclusive.
I love it. It's wonderful. I had the best time until we got shut down for COVID, and you can't do film class online.
Where did you start with that?
So evolution of cinema is actually meant to be like a history of film. So we started with Buster Keaton, and we got all the way up to Alfred Hitchcock before, Bill's giving me the pretty big thumbs up there. So Buster Keaton fan?
Film class is my absolute favorite.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Man, Buster Keaton pretty much revolutionized film. Like him and Chaplin. What did they founded United Artists, right?
Yes, they did with Mary Pickford.
Yeah, Mary Pickford.
And I was so surprised how much my students really, really enjoyed Chaplin and Keaton. I mean, like they ate it up. They thought it was hysterical and wonderful. And, Buster Keaton was a really, really talented, and gifted stuntman and stunt person. He was amazing to watch, and the kids really enjoyed it. I was so surprised.
Yeah, he got his training in theater because his father, he was nicknamed the boy who wouldn't break or something like that. And then he got the nickname Buster from who gave him that? Oh, Harry Houdini gave him the nickname Buster.
Houdini, yeah.
Yeah. Because he could get thrown all over. It was basically child abuse. His family they would perform on stage, and he was like the pratfall kid.
Vaudeville.
Yeah, vaudeville. And he'd be thrown into the audience, and he would just get up, and he would do it all with that deadpan expression.
Yeah.
Funny.
Everybody raves about Charlie Chaplin, and I am a fan, but I actually think Buster Keaton is now kind of overlooked because I think this stuff is amazing. And he, like you said, he did his own stunts, and he's incredibly physical. And there's a lot of, pratfalls and all that kind of stuff, but he could also be very poignant. I really thought he was amazing.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun to teach.
All right. Well,
he made it all the way. Ooh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You made it all the way up to Hitchcock. Where did you get? To with Hitchcock?
We had just finished. We just finished Vertigo, actually, and we'd had a chance to talk about Vertigo, and then we got the news that, hey, the governor's going to be closing schools.
Oh.
And, at that point, it was like, no more Hitchcock. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised how much they liked Hitchcock as well. Especially, I don't show like the really obvious stuff. Like I showed, Vertigo, North by Northwest. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
The kids really love that.
39 Steps, Rear Window.
I didn't go with 39 Steps. No, Rear Window. Yeah.
Did you get to The Man Who Knew Too Much?
We'd only had time for like 3. So
yeah. I actually spent an entire semester at the University of Massachusetts, and all we did was study Hitchcock. We saw every single film.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And
The favorites.
Rear Window, 39 Steps, North by Northwest is unbelievably cool. They're just great. They're fantastic. You can watch them over and over again.
I know.
Stuff.
I feel like you almost like get a sense like you're learning how to direct when you watch Hitchcock. Do you get that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Very, very much so.
Is that why one of the reasons he's so watchable?
I think so, but I really he makes a really good, entertaining movie with some of the best actors and actresses in the business. I mean, you don't get much better than Cary Grant running across the top of Mount Rushmore with Eva Marie Saint. It was amazing.
And I like all the icy blondes. It's he had a thing. There was some stuff.
Yeah, he did.
I am a fan of Rope. Tim and I did a production of Rope back in the day. Yeah, Rope.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, Rope is
that's awesome.
Yeah, and based on the oh man, am I going to forget their names again? The Leopold and the true
Leopold and Loeb.
Yeah, Leopold and Loeb.
Yeah, Leopold and Loeb.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just the,
one other fantastic thing about Kristin.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. Nice directed. I was the lead bad guy in it.
That's awesome.
I can see you as a bad guy, no question.
Oh, it was great. Our rehearsals involved a lot of throwing of chairs, which was it had to happen. It had to happen. There was a lot of tense moments between Tim and the character that Jimmy Stewart, Rupert, I think his name was. There was some tense real life moments because this guy was like, I mean, we had Slim Pickens for who was going to be in this. He was good. Like he played the role pretty well, but he was very wax figure like, not a lot of emoting, not a lot of
charisma.
Overt, not a lot of charisma. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And
a lot of acting.
Right. But the role in that play is all about building tension, until the end. So I think to your point, Lance, that it had to happen even during rehearsals. Like there was that tension that built up every single time. Yeah.
Especially, you hit somebody with a chair often enough, they're going to get.
There's a great picture from one of the performances, because the performances would change pretty much every time we did it. I think we did like maybe 4 performances or 5. I can't remember, but
we did 12. I think.
Oh, did we do 12?
Yeah. Especially the time it changed most was the time that he couldn't unlock the chest with the key.
Oh, right. There's a really amazing picture of this guy sitting in the chair, and Tim is like in his face, and he's giving him the finger, and I think that might have been one of the times like your character gave him the finger, or at least like I noticed that your character and you're right in the middle of being like "fuck you," and you're giving him the finger, and it's such an amazing still from that. I don't know who took that picture. I'll look for it. It's really good.
That's right. Yeah. Because that's at the end when he figures it out. Yeah. But yeah, on stage when he couldn't unlock the chest, he was like, I can't do it. I remember calling him a fucking idiot, like completely ad-lib, dude. I really meant it too. I was kind of mean, but
that's so funny.
Yeah, we didn't really get along, but I think I did it. I think I unlocked it, which is so like not what should have happened in the story.
Right. So that's great. Sorry, we're gonna regress a little bit into our
character.
Okay, sorry. Let's get back to true crime. But that's a true story at least. And it's based on a real crime. Bill, is there any Colonial Parkway murders update that you can share with us?
Nothing I can say publicly. I talked to the FBI this week, and things are moving along. But it's only been 33 years. There's no hurry. I'm getting older as we speak. I guess we all are.
And what about on your podcast? It seems like that's a ripe environment to cover the case.
Well, we'll wait until after the TV show that we're not talking about comes out on the Colonial Parkway murders. The show that we're not talking about.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you got a dish.
Mhm.
Spill the tea.
Yeah.
We'll cut that part.
Guys,
We can't talk about it.
You've lived this. You can't talk too much about a case while there's a television show in development. As a matter of fact, I learned that from you two gentlemen.
Well, you obviously didn't listen to the rest of what we said, because then we say, but then just go ahead and talk about it, because all they're going to do is call and be like, hey, don't do that again. We go, oh, sorry.
It was an accident.
Someday there will be a television show.
Then we're like, pay us.
We hope.
Well, there should be a friggin' television show about this, because it's one of those series of murders that is rapidly falling to the wayside. Not a lot of people know about the Colonial Parkway murders outside of that area. You're like one of the lone voices that's still like yelling this from the mountaintops. And this is something that's solvable too. God damn it.
Yeah. And there are other reasons to see the show. Kristin's in the show.
Oh my goodness. Are you the hard-nosed investigator who goes into the interrogation room and you're like, give me a minute.
And then you
unplug the camera and you're like, it's just you and me now.
No, Kristin's the one who, after I rant about law enforcement and 33 fucking years, she says, what Bill meant to say was, and then
pretty much
like that.
Well, that's the good dynamic that you have.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Yeah. No, he's and quite frankly, he's allowed to get up on his soapbox. And I think that he should, so, and because this is something that I grew up with, but I'm certainly not involved on an intimate level as Bill is. So I try not to do the ranty stuff. I try to let him do it, because this is it's where he shines. We know Bill's great at ranting and soapboxing, but also, that's his right. He needs to be able to do that. And I'm just here to do what I can and support him. It's not for me to rant about it. It's not my loved one. It's not my case. But I have become, I've become acquainted with all the families for the Colonial Parkway murders, and all of them have suffered. All of them have dealt with tremendous loss and pain and trauma. And I think it's been good for me, like as a human being, to get to know them and interact with them and understand what they're going through. Like that's made me a better person. And it's made me a better person knowing Bill.
Can you save that to the end? I guess gold.
Oh,
that was
thank
gold.
you.
Wow. I was going to say, did you ever see yourself in this position like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago? Did you ever think that you would have events that are going on in your life where you're like, this is making me a better person. I'm learning about humanity, for God's sake.
I wouldn't have suspected that this was going to happen when I got involved and made that phone call to Bill 5 years ago. I would never have thought this was going to happen, but I'm glad that it has. This has forced me to come out of my comfort zone a lot, to get involved with podcasting and now live events and everything. This is so not what I do. I mean, I get up in front of teenagers every day, and that is hard. Like they're the hardest audience you could ever work in front of. But for the most part, I know how to deal with them. I know how to handle them. They like my sense of humor, sort of. And I can deal with teenagers, but this is a much bigger stage, and it's a little weirder and a little more daunting for me. But I think it's as important to speak out and to be an advocate. And so it's hard and it's a little scary, but I'm glad I'm doing it.
Well done.
Good to push your comfort zone.
Yeah, it is.
No, seriously. And doing this Get Vocal with you guys is
Yeah. This is
I don't know
fun.
how
Yeah.
good for you. For teachers are the goddamn lifeblood of this country, and they don't get enough credit. And you do it for 11th graders, you said?
11th
Is
graders,
there
yeah.
any grade that just doesn't want to be there more than 11th graders? Like,
No. Like the 10th graders, I think, are a lot
Really?
harder. The 11th graders, like at that point, they know I've got college in a year. I've got SATs I need to get serious about. 11th grade is the year that they take you have to pass this test in order to graduate high school. The SOL tests, which I realize is a totally ridiculous acronym.
Yeah.
So does the state of
yeah,
Virginia.
that's
You don't pass your SOL, you're
Exactly.
SOL. But no, I like my 11th graders a lot. It's actually that's the sweet spot for high school, honestly. So yeah, I like working.
I guess
with
I
them.
was just thinking about my 11th grade experience, and I was like smoking cigarettes and just being
On the tracks.
on the tracks down by. We had an area by my high school. They called it the hole in the fence. That's where you went down to smoke cigarettes and skip school down by the hole in the fence.
Wow.
Like,
sounds like
what are you rebelling against, Lance? And I go, what do you
Stephen
got?
King novel.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys both you work on the Facebook page, the Colonial Parkway Facebook page, and you're into social media, and you've probably seen a lot in your days in that Facebook group and beyond, especially in working with a crime case, investigating. You get some people messaging you, hey, what's this, what's that?
Yes.
Oh, we do.
Tell us.
We had some earlier this week,
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
An
Tell
hour
us any
ago.
weird ones.
No, people just come out of the woodwork. I think unsolved cases attract a lot of interesting people, and
To say the
yeah,
least.
and we get this guy. He's just we sort of let him go. He's messaging us over and over and over again, and you keep thinking there's going to be something here, right? This is going to be something we can do something with, right? And it'll just go on, and you're like, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to blow people off. And we've got 11,000 followers, and we want to be nice to everybody, but what do you do with that? It just, and then like today, we were talking about this a couple of hours ago. Kristin said, did you see the comments on the page, the Facebook page, Colonial Parkway Murders? And I was a little behind because I was doing the editing thing. And I said, no. And then she said, well, who's so-and-so? And I said, off the top of my head, I don't remember that I know this guy. And she said, well, he writes like he knows you, which does happen a fair amount of the time. And then he's asking all these really super detailed questions about the murders, not necessarily graphic, but we're just trying to figure out, like, do we want to engage on this? Who is this guy? What does he want? And at the same time, you've got a lot of other people that are very, very supportive, and they want to hear what's going on with the case. And then we've made a decision to kind of expand our portfolio. We're not going to have news about the Colonial Parkway murders, every week, sadly. So we decided to start incorporating other stuff. I'm sorry, Kristin, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was going to say, like, there's no way that we can have constant updates on our case because there aren't enough. So we do try to, like Bill was saying, we try to diversify, and we have a lot of other cases that we're interested in, and we post a lot about DNA and genetic genealogy. But we're trying to do a whole lot with the page beyond sort of our primary interest, which is the case. But I think a lot of the people that message and write into the page are doing it with good intentions and with a good heart because they want to help. But then every once in a while, like Bill was saying, we do get people who message and it's like, I'm not sure what you want me to say or do, but okay, I'll listen to whatever you have to say. And sometimes it's people who say they've experienced something on the parkway, and we always take that into account and, write it down, keep it in a book. And other times it's people who just have a theory that they want to lay out. And we do get people who are like, hey, I think it's this person. Can you check this person? And we do have to remind people we're not investigators. We're not law enforcement, so we can't run background checks on, your ex-boyfriend, and whoever else. We have a lot of people who actually will give us a name and say, hey, can you look up this person? No, we can't.
And what kind of
it's interesting. It is never dull. It is never dull running the page.
Yeah. What kind of backlash do you get when you tell them that you can't do it? Because we've experienced this as well. When people they email. There's one. I mean, the armchair detective guy. He will email and he'll be totally sane for one email, and he'll give this theory that is. He'll give you like part A and part C, but that part B, that connective tissue, isn't there. And then we'll be like, okay, well, I'm just not following you, and then it's over. Like you idiots, how can you? That's just like the tip of the iceberg. Do you get reactions like that when you tell people kind of what they're getting at isn't really going anywhere?
We try to be very not circumspect necessarily. We try to be respectful. But I mean, I can't think of anybody who's ever really gone over the top. Can you?
No, I don't think so. Sometimes we have to throw down, or I have to throw down we had somebody complain the other day that we weren't, providing updates on the Colonial Parkway murders, and why were we writing about these other things? And Kristin responded, and then I actually felt like I needed to weigh in here and say, this page is run by the following two people, and I get a bit about Kristin and a bit about me, but I feel like for me in particular, at some point I can say, if I need to remind you that I'm the older brother of Kathy Thomas, who together with her girlfriend, Rebecca Dowski, were the first two victims in the Colonial Parkway murders, and note the run-on sentence, I've written that so many times, in emails and talking to journalists and, on and on and on, that every once in a while you have to throw down that card that, look, we're not just two people that decided to, start writing about the Colonial Parkway murders. At the same time, I'm sort of uniquely qualified in that I'm also a family member. So that's a bit unusual. Every once in a while, we don't have people go off too often. We've got some oddballs.
And we do have people who make occasionally odd requests, like, can I have the crime scene photos? No.
Yeah.
You can't have the crime scene photos. No.
Why not?
And that's the kind of thing where really?
I thought
no.
It's on a shared Google Drive, right?
I haven't even seen the crime scene photos.
I unfortunately have seen the crime scene photos.
Whew, man. What is that? Hard question, but gotta ask. What is that like, Bill?
Well, I've got two versions of the crime scene photos. There's 78 highly graphic crime scene photos that were leaked by the FBI in 2009, which is why I got much more heavily involved in the case over the last 11 years. And I have two versions of the 78. One of them, my wonderful, long-suffering girlfriend, Pamela, I actually asked her to go through the photos, and we took out the 6 absolute worst photographs that I just cannot look at. And, look, I don't think most people would want to see, incredibly gory graphic photos of someone that they love. And as I've said before, my nightmares are already vivid enough. I don't need to have, and sadly what's happened is because I have the crime scene photos because they were leaked, and the FBI can claim up and down all day that they collected every copy of the 78 highly graphic crime scene photos, which were in a PowerPoint format. And that's not true. I know a dozen journalists who have copies, which is how I have a copy. And once or twice when I've been working with my computer, I have come across one of those images, and it's just like one of those things where you just want to close your eyes and make it go away. But driving your computer with your eyes closed is essentially impossible. So you still have to, get over to the corner and click and, shutter and think to yourself, I don't ever want to see that again. So I have a 72 version, 72, individual slides that I can at least, look at without crying. And, the bottom line is the crime scene photos are the reason that I got so heavily involved in the case. So the crime scene photos have served a purpose. But as Kristin said, we get people, fairly regularly that say, where are the crime scene photos? Why can't I find the crime scene photos online? That kind of thing. And that's just, as Morph says, the downside of true crime. And he's absolutely right. Every once in a while, people will cross the line into like really grossly insensitive. And you're like, really? How much more graphic do you want me to get? And I am capable of having that conversation, and certainly have with the FBI and the Virginia State Police. But, it's not a place that I would want to go, in public.
Do you look at them with like an investigative eye?
I have, and then sometimes investigators, and they are a little more hardened to this kind of thing. In other words, private eyes, and we've brought in independent people as well. I think if you're not related to the person, and I was never, going to be an investigator. That's not my thing. And we were joking about this before we started. You guys were talking about Pennywise. I'm like the last guy that would go to like a horror film, a slasher film. That's just not me. I'm a lot more soft-hearted than that. But sometimes experts have asked me to look at things, and I've seen the photos enough to know, what's there. Sometimes people will get into something really specific about like what's in the what's in the cars. The Colonial Parkway murders all kind of center around couples in cars. So the cars are. It's funny, we call them the crime scene. They're not actually the crime scene, but they're in most examples, they're all we've got. But sometimes people will ask me very specific questions about, what's in the background, what's in the glove box, stuff like that. And, I'll go back and take a look. I don't spend a lot of time looking at them. Let's put it that way.
One of the comments in the chat area was from Pi Rational about PTSD. And this is the last, we don't have to keep talking about it, but I am curious. I think it is important for people to hear, especially we have Amanda in here for Justice for DJ, who her brother was her brother was murdered, not according to the police, but how was it a concern of yours that once you saw these, did you think that this might be something that was going to be too traumatic for you? And did you go to like a psychiatrist? Did you get any like therapy or anything to get you through it, or were you mentally capable to kind of push past that?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
No, I just got married and divorced a couple of times, had relationships flame out. and Shrink say, I think this has something to do with your sister's murder. And it's like, yeah,
you think?
Okay. You mean I'm damaged? Well, and someone asked about can you compartmentalize? I think one of the things that's a real struggle, and again, because this is someone that I love and care about, and like I said, I was never going to be that, hard-hearted enough to be a cop or something like that. That's just not me. It's very hard to unsee those things. And so, you know, I've said in interviews before, on the happiest day of my life, which I have many, and there's a lot of joy in my life, and I have a lot of things to be grateful for. But if I'm really honest with myself, on the happiest day of my life, in the most joyous moment, if I chose to, I could probably, if I went and sat by myself for a few minutes, you know, say at that party or whatever, I could probably bring myself all the way down to as dark a place as I've ever been, probably within a few minutes, just by thinking about, you know, this kind of stuff. And you know, that's not where I want to be. So you try to focus on the, you know, the positive, and that's where you try to spend as much time. But, you know, have there been different times when I have lost my temper or, you know, gotten into an argument or gotten cut off in traffic? And I'm not proud of this, where I've gotten to such a profoundly horrible place so quickly. And it might just be that I'm an Irishman, but it's not just that I'm a stupid Irishman. It's you know, there's a lot there, and you just try not to step over to that edge.
So interesting to hear, because last week we had Cloyd Steiger on, and he's a 35 plus, you know, he's a homicide detective, and he's solved serial killer cases, and he's a great guy, but he was just he really just kind of brushed off what it does to you mentally. And granted, he didn't have anything happen to him personally in his family, but he was like, you know, if we saw something gruesome, if we saw, you know, a bad day and there were victims and it was particularly bad, you just kind of, you go out and you have a beer and you move on. And when he said that, you know, they were having a really good conversation. I didn't want to interject with anything, but I was thinking, like, really, it's that easy? Like, you see like dead children, and you're just like, well, you know, just go grab a beer. Like, I don't know if it's that easy. I think it might come back at some point.
Yeah, I think Floyd's a special case in that sense.
Yeah, most people, it's probably not that easy.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is. And most of the investigators that I've met over the years, I think it's got to be difficult. And think about it. You know, my exposure, which is limited. Can you imagine? It has to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, Tim and I could do it because we're stone cold sons of bitches. I mean, all in a day's work. What else you got, world? Yeah. And
now, Michelle,
teaching 11th grade, she can do anything.
And Michelle says, yeah, she's tough. But Michelle says she was able to put it aside. And, you know, that's to her credit. I think that's amazing. I don't think I could do that. I think I'm too much of a softie.
Well,
softies, hit the bricks, you softie.
Hit the skids.
Hit the skids, pal, you liberal.
You snowflake.
Oh, yeah.
So, just kidding. So
all heart, says Shannon.
Stone cold heart, cold heart.
You guys recently did an episode on the Grim Sleeper. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure.
Yeah, so that was and we're trying to cover cases not just from Virginia, but from places that both of us have lived. And I said, Bill, what's a Los Angeles case that we can cover? And he said, oh, how about the Grim Sleeper? And I'd never heard of it. That's not because I don't read enough true crime. I do. I read a ton of it, but I can't follow everything. And so I hadn't heard of Grim Sleeper. And then
living in LA when this story broke, so I'm familiar with the story.
Yes.
It was when I started researching it, it was just really profoundly interesting. And I called Bill back and I was like, yeah, we got to do this case. This is really interesting. So, you know, we kind of, Bill was talking earlier about how we kind of divide up the duties for Mind Over Murder. And I do most of the writing up of our research notes because he does most of the technical stuff. so, and we both share, podcasting duties when we're actually recording. So, the more research that I did and the more documentaries I watched and the more that I read about it, the more enthralled I was by this case. So we had a ton of fun with that first episode. And Bill, you're working on the second part of it. Am I
Yes,
right?
part 2.
Is that what you're editing right now? Yeah. And then we just did an episode with Colleen Fitzpatrick, who is going to talk to us about the DNA side of it. And can I spoil who our guest is going to be on Monday,
Yeah.
Bill?
The
Is that
Lance?
okay?
Spill it.
Yeah.
It's
We
not
got
Lance.
Chris. No, we got
Okay.
Christine
No.
Pellisack.
Wait, it's not
Christine
me.
Pellisack.
Yeah.
You guys come up later.
Unbelievable.
I was just gonna be so jealous if it was Lance and not.
What?
We got Christine
Who's she?
Pellisack to come and talk about
Pellisack.
her
You
books.
don't know Kristin Pellisack, Lance?
Oh!
Yeah.
I misunderstood. I thought she said Tom Hanks.
No, he's in the movie.
Well, give us some background. What's the Grim Sleeper?
Oh, okay. All right. The Grim Sleeper is a
Ooh.
very interesting case. Approximately 11. Tell me if I got my numbers right, Kristin. 11 women were attacked by a man who was ultimately identified as a man named Lonnie Franklin Jr. And these were African-American women living in South Central Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s during the crack epidemic. And a lot of the women that were murdered were, very much on the fringes. They were often involved in the drug trade. They were often sex workers. And this guy seemed to prey on those women that were very much sort of on the edge. And it's a very sad case because it dragged on for years. It's referred to as the Grim Sleeper case because Christine Pellisack, actually, in LA Weekly, started calling it that because there was an apparent 13-year gap between a series of murders in the 80s and then a break, and then they picked up again in, now I'm doing this from memory, 2002, Kristin? And so there's a
2002.
break from the late 2002, although I feel very strongly that the murders continued. It's just that Lonnie Franklin Jr., the perpetrator who is now dead, he died a few months ago. I think he did continue to murder, but he changed up his method in terms of how he was disposing of the bodies. And they think that he may have killed as many as 25. I think the number could be far higher than that. But I think they charged him with 10. I'm doing this from memory now. 10 murders and 1 attempted.
10 murders, 1 attempted murder. And then in the penalty phase of his trial, they actually brought in 4 other murders that they had uncovered during the time period between his arrest and when he was brought to trial. So he's not a nice,
Super
not a
interesting.
nice dude.
One of the first cases to be broken with familial DNA. They talked then Attorney General of the state of California, Jerry Brown, into allowing them to do familial searching. And that's how they discovered Lonnie Franklin Jr. His son, Christopher, had been in jail on a gun charge, a weapons charge, which was a felony and required him to put his DNA into the system. And so they found a familial match in the California penal system. Christopher was too young to have committed the murders back in the 80s, but they realized that they were probably looking at a father, an uncle, maybe a grandfather, someone like that. So very, very interesting case.
Damn, and he's dead now. You said he died a couple of months ago?
He died a couple of months ago
Died in
at
San
San
Quentin.
Quentin. He was found dead in his cell, and there's no apparent act of violence, but they've never said what he died from.
Just natural causes. He just died. How old was he?
60.
Maybe 60-ish,
Yeah.
some like mid-60s, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that
Something
sounds
like that.
a
Very
bit suspect.
Well, and there's other very weird things about the case. Tim
You
may
think,
remember
yeah.
this too. when they arrested the Grim Sleeper using the familial DNA technique to identify him, and then of course they confirmed that it was him with bites from pizza from a pizza party, which provided the DNA to get the one-to-one match. They discovered in searching his property that he had over 1,000 Polaroids of women, and some of the women were clearly alive and smiling for the camera. Others were in sexual poses and so on. Some of them were either asleep or dead. And so they actually struggled, the law enforcement struggled trying to identify all of the women in these pictures. And I don't know if you remember this, Tim, they actually ran hundreds and hundreds of photographs in the Los Angeles Times and online. And they made it very clear that these women were not suspects in any way, shape, or form. They were victims, and they were looking to identify these women because they couldn't figure out who these people were. And so there are duplicates. In other words, there are sometimes photographs, more than one, of the individual women that he attacked. And not everybody who appeared in the pictures was necessarily murdered. He frequented prostitutes very often, and he had this thing where he would take their picture. But they think there are at least 180 different women and over 1,000 pictures. It's just super, super creepy. And so there's so many different aspects of this thing. You know, a lot of experts feel that one of the reasons why the case went unsolved for so long is the women were African American, they were poor, they were from South Central, they were sex workers and people that were involved in the drug trade. And you know, what's crazy is that in 1988, a woman was actually, you know, essentially kidnapped by this guy and shot and dumped out of the car to die, and she survived and provided LAPD with a very, very good description of the guy and his bright orange Ford Pinto, and yet they never followed up. So that the case went to sleep apparently for 13 years and then picked up again. And it isn't until the 2000s that they finally put together a team of people to, you know, really begin searching for this guy. And they failed to let the community know that this was going on until many, many years later. So the whole thing, it highlights so many different aspects of what's wrong with criminal investigation today. And as Shannon says, no one cared. That's exactly what was going on. You know, Villa Ragosa, the mayor didn't care. Several police chiefs in a row didn't make it a priority, and nobody made it a priority except for Christine Pelisek and a small group of activists in South Central who really tried to let the community know there's someone preying on these women. It's a sad story, but we felt like it's a story that's always fascinated me personally because I lived in Los Angeles during that time as well. Excuse me. And Kristin and I felt like it covered so many different, really interesting kind of interlaid issues.
Yeah.
And then Kristin got Christine Pelisek to say yes to do an episode with us, which is really cool.
I'm so psyched. That's going to be wonderful. Her book is excellent.
What's her title?
It's called The Grim Sleeper, The Lost Women of South Central.
And how did you get her to agree to be on the show? Did you just say, it's me and Bill Thomas? And she's like,
Yeah, before we go any further, guys.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
Before we go any further, I just want to apologize for Lance. He hasn't read a true crime book in a long time. And so I obviously knew about her and about her books. And
I'm gonna show you the last true crime book I read.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Reaching back. It's his Bible. Which one is it? I still can't.
Hold on.
I can't
Just
see
so you
it.
guys know, I read enough for the both of us.
Tim devours books.
He did.
Sorry, I'm just being
Figuratively
I was
and literally.
For a second,
So
I
we
thought
need to
you were-
get Tim on True Crime Bookshelf then.
Ah, the Dean murder mystery. You guys are covering this case now, are you not?
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been covering it for a little bit. We owe the public a new episode, but this book was written in 1920. So
Wow. For a second, I was worried.
I only read books prior to 1950, like, before that.
Yeah, yeah. You're kind of a classics sort of guy.
I am a classics guy. Yeah. So you called her up, Kristin, and you said, I got Bill Thomas. He wants to talk to you. You say yes, or I'm gonna rain hell down on you.
I just emailed her and said, we really liked your book. We're very interested in all the work that you did on the case. Would you like to come on and talk about it? And I find that when you offer people an opportunity to talk about their work, like most times they're going to say yeah. So I was thrilled that she said yeah.
You didn't threaten to rain hell down on her?
No.
No. I'm not there yet.
I'd like to think I played a small support role in this because Kristin had contacted her and emailed her, and she said, I didn't hear from her. Let's wait until after the weekend and we'll see. And then
oh, that's right. Yeah.
I tweeted Kristin's recommendation of her book. Now, Kristin's not on Twitter and I am. And so
No,
I
not.
tweeted Kristin's recommendation of her book, and she called Kristin 5 minutes later.
Yeah, she kind
Coincidence?
of did, actually.
I think not.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. No, because
So
when Bill Thomas says jump, you say how high? You say how
Kristin-
high, Mr.
Kristin
Sir
did.
Bill Thomas.
I
Exactly.
just borrowed her Facebook and social media message, and I said, I'm going to throw this on the Twitter machine and see what happens. And next thing you knew, Kristin called Kristin. That gets confusing, and
Yeah. It
and,
does.
and it was a lock.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and when Bill did put something up on Twitter about our episode with David Rambo, Mark Helgenberger did tweet about our episode about CSI writer and producer David Rambo. So that is also, we also owe Bill thanks for putting Mark Helgenberger on our radar.
We
Well,
owe
and
Bill
of course,
a lot.
Kristin,
I do. No, I really do.
She lost her mind because
I did. I lost my mind.
she's a massive CSI fan, and
Nice.
Yeah. Absolutely massive CSI.
There's some talk in the message area here that I need to address. It's very
are
unsettling.
you being insulting?
I do
Oh,
not
dear.
love ranch dressing. I'm not a fan of ranch dressing, and Bruce Springsteen is very overrated.
Oh my God!
We
Give yourself a home here.
we wrote a blog post recently for a friend of ours named Timu, who does a really cool Instagram page called Forensic. And he does a site and everything, and he asked us some questions about the Moore Murray case, and then he asked us same questions he asked everyone at the end, I guess. And he said, "What are your 3 favorite albums?" And I wrote specifically that Lance loves Bruce Springsteen's Greatest Hits and the Eagles' Greatest Hits.
Oh,
Because no matter what you say, if you say anything Greatest Hits, it's like a hack answer.
yeah.
unless it's Tom Petty's Greatest Hits. That's a great album.
No, still, because
Interesting.
I love Tom Petty, and that is a great album. But even if you put that would be hack. That would be just like the run of the mill Tom Petty
Sure.
fan, and really, that's not your favorite album unless it's like one of the only albums you've ever heard. If you know what I mean.
Understood.
Yeah, I like my $40 box set of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with all the outtakes and all that stuff.
Oh, just humble
That's
brag.
for the real fans.
For the record, I am not a Green Day fan. I'm not a Rick Astley fan.
But I will say, to your credit, you
Defensive.
I sent this. I typed up the first draft of this blog post and sent it to Lance, and I really put the Bruce Springsteen and Eagles albums in there as a joke.
What was album number 3?
That was Tom Petty Wildflowers. That was the only real answer. But I expected Lance to change it or want to change it, but he let it go. To his credit, he let it go.
Yeah. See, that is how magnanimous I am. I will see a joke, even at my own expense, and I will say, by all means.
Many jokes are.
Yep. By all means. If I can make one child laugh.
You know, Lance, I know I'm new to this.
I love Nickelback. What?
But Jesus.
My sister, sorry, I gotta say, my sister was like, "Oh,
he's so defensive."
Okay, never mind. Go on. I am not going to regress into family talk.
I learned something tonight. Kristin offered a really solid tip here, which is, you can minimize the message box so that they don't and you can focus on the conversation.
Oh, you got to get fired up. What were you going to say? Sorry.
He wants to argue with Shannon.
Oh. Thanks. Shannon's son loves my voice. Well, that makes one of us.
All right. Well,
You've got a good voice, Lance. I love it.
I was told I had a good voice when I got a job selling rare coins. I was a rare coin dealer at one point in my life, and they were like, "You could probably do that." I sold that many rare coins as a scam. People, by the way, don't invest in rare coins. If you get a phone call from somebody, don't invest in rare coins.
And now I've insulted Brock because I suggested you minimize. Brock, I wasn't going to minimize your comments. I was urging Lance to minimize everyone's comments so he could focus.
If Bill says you're going to get minimized, you're going to get, you say how small.
Brock, I've never minimized you.
Typical.
So, Bill, we mentioned that you've got the hat trick, and you're the only person on the history of Crawlspace Media, established 2017, to have the hat trick on those 3 shows. And tell us a little bit about your appearance on Empty Frames, your upcoming appearance on Empty Frames.
Oh, well, we get to the bottom of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum theft. So
we solved it.
All will be revealed next Tuesday. Am I correct? Not only should we alert the media, we should let Anthony Amore from the museum know. Tim shaking his head.
Let's let him subscribe to Stitcher Premium to find out.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Right. Actually, we'll let him know to subscribe to Stitcher Premium.
No freebie for that guy. Seriously.
And now, see, he's going to be so pissed that only Stitcher Premium members know where the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum paintings are.
That's right.
Not him. He never saw it coming. He's gonna
have to subscribe $4.99 a month, and then he's gonna have to listen to the entire episode just to find out.
Because we only reveal at the very end.
At the very end, and you know what though? He can check out other shows on Stitcher Premium, like Missing Maura Murray Creator Commentary.
Oh,
so it's a deal. $4.99.
We'll give him a shout out.
I want to go back to the first couple of episodes and see if you guys sound nervous.
Oh,
we were
nervous.
We were garbage, Bill. Oh my God, we're still arguably garbage, but
Flow's a little better though.
Yeah,
arguably garbage.
Yeah.
No, for the benefit of everyone who's listening in here, by the way, did you guys mentioned your new nickname, which is our benevolent Crawlspace overlords.
Benevolent Crawlspace overlords.
I mean,
BCO,
I'll take it.
Short.
I'll take it. I think it's a step in the right direction. If there's a word beyond overlord, then I might be more willing. But it's a step in the right direction.
Beyond overlord, come on, that's as high as it gets. Almighty
I think
one.
there's something more. I think there's something higher.
We do have to give ourselves titles soon. That might not be bad, Lance. Overlord.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's. I mean, again, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we did used to joke that you were Lord Greensteer when during the production. the production of Rope. I used to during these rehearsals, the aforementioned rehearsals for this play, Rope. There was a blackboard, or actually it was a chalkboard, and I used to write like the long way with the chalk. I used to write feel the wrath of Lord Reinstierna every single day, full
I'm
words.
So proud of you that you can
Love it.
pronounce Reinstierna. In our recent episode, I actually struggle with it, and I left it in.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'd like to offer a little clarification. Initially, Kristin was referring to you as our Crawlspace overlords.
No, I think I came up with benevolent.
No. I'm sorry. We're gonna, if we have to have a public throwdown, I came up with benevolent.
Oh, mom and dad are fighting.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Are you really going to take full credit for the entire thing?
I'm pretty sure I came up with benevolent Crawlspace overlord, but that's okay.
And Pamela says she came up with mind over murder. So, I mean, I'm just the boat anchor around here. That's all.
Oh.
Who did ultimate? Oh man. Now I'm trying to remember, because we were really tossing around something other than mind over murder. Who came up with mind over murder?
Morph had taken all the good names, so we.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he had.
Well, Morph actually.
Shame on you, Morph.
Morph actually texted us when you guys were trying to come up with a name for the show, and he was like, "What about mind over murder? Can you guys tell him that?" And we're like, "Dude, just relax on your names, and it's just a coincidence you picked that."
Yeah. And there is a movie and a book and a whole bunch of other shit, but we don't care at this point.
Title.
It's a great title.
Podcast, so we differentiate ourselves.
Yeah.
We had like 100 names. We had 100 great names, just fantastic names, better than any.
And then a bunch of mediocre ones.
Well, no. As we worked our way down, we went from 100 names to 15 names because nothing cleared. Everything was taken. All the good one-word names, like
criminology.
Criminology. The Hatchet Hour. All those kind of names, spooky names like Crawlspace. Those were all taken. So we had to keep coming up with two things. Combinations of two things and three things. We're like blue murder, purple murder, red murder, all that stuff. Everything with crime, true, or murder in it was taken until we got to mind over murder.
Well, it definitely fits. What's one of your least favorite podcast names that exists out there currently? I want you to dish. Is there a podcast that exists currently that you're like, that's a dumb name?
Well, True Confessions.
I can't think of
I
one.
actually help moderate a Facebook page called True Crime. And so as the moderator, you have to approve stuff. And man, there's some really, really dubious stuff. Like every day, I think we get something where I just like cringe. They're like graphic photos and find out how so-and-so was hacked to death. And there's a lot of really sicky stuff out there, and you're just like, really? I don't think so. So I'm like, You
know what my least favorite podcast name is?
We're going to say your least favorite podcast. That's a whole different topic. Go ahead.
Lokesh. Thank you. Very generous. Clear and Vivid. I hate that podcast.
Oh, I don't. You mean the name or the content?
No, I hate it. It's Alan Alda has a pod. Yeah. Alan Alda has a podcast.
Yeah, Lance wants to get in the octagon with Alan Alda.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Really?
What did Alan?
I like Alan Alda.
I like Alan Alda.
Yeah, man. What
Nothing.
Did he do to you? He was great on the West Wing.
Yeah, he was great in MASH. What? Know your place, man.
In other words, stay out of your space.
Yeah.
Stay out of the.
Stay out of our territory.
Okay.
Unless
this is going to be a
get in your helicopter.
Issue.
Get out of here.
Oh, I thought you were going to say. So that's your least favorite podcast.
I only asked you that question so I could vent about Clear and Vivid. I didn't even hear what you said. I was just waiting for you to stop so I could.
You were muted. That was a setup just so you could say something funny,
Yes.
like a talk show host.
Yes, I had no intention of actually
Love it.
taking into consideration your answer.
I could have said anything.
Yeah.
Tim, what's your least favorite true crime podcast?
Last
Better
scene.
stay clear and vote. Oh,
No, I'm just kidding. I have nothing against last scene. Lance is, Morph in the chat room is joking about our talking about double A. But no, I don't have anything against last scene. Although Kelly Horn, who we spoke to, who's the host of Last Scene, was so nice. She really wanted to work with us, but someone got in the way.
Before she was pressured not to participate in your podcast. That was a lot of P's.
Yeah, that's correct. All right, everybody.
oh wow! It's already wow. We've gone way past curtains here. It's curtains for your off. Like curtains.
Do they cut us off at some point? What
They
happens?
don't. We could go
No.
forever if we wanted.
They cut other people off, and they go to cut us off, and they're like, we can't cut those stone cold sons of bitches off.
What? It's not
Right.
working. I can't cut it off.
The buttons Alex at Get Vocals like it's not working. We're like, yeah, it's
See?
not working.
We need a,
Kristin, see,
we
when
need
we were asked to do this, True Confessions, I'm very confessional tonight. I would say.
He really is.
Because we're
we
like
were
priests.
True
No,
crime
no.
confessional.
I'm proud to be an altar boy.
It's a good
Name,
podcast
sorry.
name. True crime confessional.
Oh yeah,
Dibs.
Oh, that's
Dibs,
great.
I called it.
That's and
Morph,
a nun and a
I
priest
called
should
it.
host it.
Morph, can you check and see if True Crime Confessional is taken? That would be a great name.
Morph already just released 4 episodes of it.
Yeah, Morph's got a show called True Crime Confessional. We just launched.
Yeah.
Okay, while we're in True Crime Confessional,
This is gonna be a comedy one, please. True crime priest. This is amazing.
hey, I am proud to announce that I was an altar boy in the Boston Diocese, and apparently
And you-
I was not as handsome as my mother told me because I managed to make it through my entire career without ever being harassed by members of the clergy.
Jesus.
Consider yourself lucky. Jesus Christ. You
God, I
dodged
thought
a
we were
bullet.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was a Boy Scout. I was actually an Eagle Scout, and I managed to make it through
My God.
the Boy Scout program without.
You were just tempting fate, weren't you?
Yeah, seriously.
Altar boy scout who made it out unscathed.
Yeah, made it out alive.
An altar boy from the Boston Diocese. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Turn
Oh,
podcaster.
I remember when Time Magazine broke, that whole story. They had pictures of one of the Catholic churches in our town. Not mine. Mine was the Immaculate Conception. But there's a story there too. But
I could tell by the pause.
I'm just trying to figure out how far are we going to take this. You guys bring out the confessional in us all.
Priests. That's us.
This needs to be our new podcast.
It might have been a snort. It might have been a snort, Shannon.
Might have been a snort. Well, I just want to clarify. That wasn't a derisive snort, though. That sounded supportive to me.
I don't know what derisive means, but I don't think it was.
Yes.
Oh, it means commodious. It was a very commodious snort.
You have to explain commodious now.
It's a building with a lot of toilets.
I still can't explain it.
The first time I was a guest on Crawlspace. Remember back when we would do podcasts and we'd actually be in the same room? You remember.
Mm.
We'd gather around a small table and there'd be multiple microphones, which may or may not have been thoroughly cleaned, but it didn't matter.
Oh, they were
because-
definitely thoroughly cleaned.
Well, no, with the crack crew you've got there, that I'm sure they were well cleaned. I take that back. But
Oh, there was clean crack.
the first time you were in Worcester, after all,
And
the
Dirty
first
Crap.
time I went to Wormtown to appear on Crawlspace. That's the name of your show, right? I actually looked, it's right there on the screen, so that was helpful.
You better be
And
kidding.
I mentioned that I was really enjoying my tour of the Commodious, as I recall, Crawlspace Studios,
Mhm.
and it became a bit of a thing, a joke, a running gag. Not that anyone laughed, but it was all those things.
Well, you said it's so commodious.
It
And
was.
I think you dropped it on us while we were recording, and I don't
Of
know.
course.
Yeah, because I remember
Personally,
hearing it. Yeah.
I was like, did he just insult us? Like, sorry, with our commodious
No.
studio. And then we found out later on what commodious means.
I was paying you a compliment.
It's very
Why would
complimentary.
I be so ungracious as to insult the beautiful facilities.
Lance actually was about to kick you out for it. He was like kicking me under the desk. He was like looking at me. He was like,
out of here.
A vein in my head was like pulsating.
Commodious. Yeah.
Like you get into your Mini Cooper and you drive right back to Connecticut. You damn liberal.
And yes, he does have a Mini Cooper.
So does Lance.
I do.
Oh, Lance has a Mini Cooper.
I have a long-haired dachshund, and so does Lance.
We are like, I know we're so close to God. It's not even funny.
You're like the same
we're
person.
like the same person. We finish each other's sentences.
Serial sentences.
You the same sense of humor too, clearly.
And,
I am a fiery Irishman too.
There's no way the Reinsteerners are Irish.
There's a silent O in the beginning.
Oh, I see. Oh, apostrophe.
Yeah.
Reinsteerna.
Oh, Reinsteerna.
I would be completely lost.
I'll do a DNA thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
wow. It is 10:23, guys.
Desperately till end this thing.
It's 10:23.
Every time we do
so
get
much.
vocal, we just keep pushing it past 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, as long as the bill is paid up, you can keep going, right?
We could.
And if this was during the school year, back when we had school, and back when we
had school,
had teachers and students that went to school together in the same room, it's a thing. It's a little bit like the podcast studio.
Yeah.
Back in this, Kristin would have to go to bed, but now it's summertime, so she can stay up really late.
She's gonna party.
Yeah. Kristin's gonna stay up and work on her book.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
Very good.
Yes.
How's it coming?
Yeah. Not great. Got writer's block, but
Well,
that's okay.
Send what you got to Tim. He'll read it and then he'll give you some feedback.
And then I'll do a quick book report. Get you going again. I'm talking about it. All right,
Oh, that's
everybody.
funny, Shannon. Oddly enough, Shannon, I don't have to use the men's room right now.
No, because usually everything I do with Lance at some point ends with him announcing that he has to go. So that's his signal that the show is over. I gotta pee.
Everything we do, Bill, you captivate me for so long. When we've wrapped up, I'm like, oh my God, I really have to pee.
Get in touch with your feelings here, dude.
No, I couldn't be more in touch with my feelings. I am in touch with my feelings. It's embarrassing.
Do what Kristin and I do with Mind Over Murder. We get to the 50-minute mark and we stop the conversation and say, well, that's a wrap, and then take a short break, and then we come back and we record another episode.
Nice.
Hard stop.
Well, thank you, Locash, for the V coins. Really appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for listening tonight, and Bill and Kristin for joining us here on Thursday night's Gossip Pod. This was a lot of fun. Make sure everybody who's listening to these words right now, go subscribe to Mind Over Murder now.
or you're out.
Please.
Well, thank you.
You're out of here.
Not an actual threat, but it's a good show. You'll love it. And
Hosted by
We really love doing
Dame Kristin Dilley and Sir William Thomas.
Well, thanks everybody.
I love being titled. This is great.
We will see you next week.
Now this-